Morning, welcome. This is Talking Point on WSN. Sean Michael Small here. My co-host is not here yet, unfortunately. He actually has another assignment to do today and isn't able to join me. Of course, Acting ASP Ashraf Ali will be joining me later. And we have a whole host of things to be getting to. Anyway, let's start off this morning's daily review. Of course, with most weekends now, we wait with bated breath with regards to our crime situation and with regards to gunfights, killings, whether lawful or unlawful, whether by police or by other members of the public, tend to happen around the weekend, and this weekend is no different. But what is interesting is this weekend also was reported on the U.S. State Department's 2022 Country Reports on Human Rights Practices. That was made a story this weekend, I believe, because it is the anniversary of a certain police shooting. And the thing about the report is, of course, it highlights arbitrary and unlawful police killings, most notably the shooting of P.C. Gilks. It highlights the fact that not only was he killed by his own officers, but they lied about the situation. They lied about who shot him. They also highlighted the fact that the alleged suspect, also was killed sometime later. Then there was also another shooting, again, that happened about a year ago, where 3 young men were shot in the back. That was one of the last shootings of suspects, I believe, where it became a big question, a big concern, a big controversy in the national sphere. Because there were a couple of incidents earlier where it seemed as though the police acquitted themselves quite well, and we were quite grateful that the violence was, for the most part, contained. And then you have a situation where 3 gentlemen were shot in the back, which is of a questionable justification, regardless on if they actually shot the police or not, unless somehow they were leaning back, tilting their heads back, reaching backwards with their shooting hand and trying to get shots in while running. But for 3 of them to be shot in the back, it's not unreasonable to ask, were they running away? Not shooting, and at that point, not a threat, and then comes the question on the use of force policy. Is that right? Regardless of what they just recently did, there's not necessarily an indication that they're firing right now. They could be out of ammunition. They could have ditched the gun. All of these things I don't think are necessarily in the public. But Friday, there was another shooting. The family now are upset. I think in all of these, we have to ask, where are the body cameras? And why is it that the TTPS can't seem to get whatever logistical systems or operational systems or just enough units to have body cameras? Because like politicians, transparency works for you. And I would imagine that there are many officers who are upset when the public basically cries out unlawful killings and extrajudicial killings. I want to blame the police. But you have to understand from the public's point of view, and we'll get into this further on later in the show, you don't necessarily have the leeway for us to believe you 100% of the time, or 80% of the time, maybe not even 50% of the time. Let's not forget that for all intents and purposes, it hasn't been declared in a court of law, but I think it's safe to say a couple of officers lied about the shooting of one of their own. Much less what would they say about the shooting of an alleged suspect who, until the case happens, but he's dead, so will the case ever happen? You see, dead men don't have the chance to argue their innocence. Convenient, isn't it? And in the case of the shooting Friday, it seems as though the young man was shot 8 times. Or at least that's what the grandmother is of the belief of. And I also want to find out exactly what is going on for somebody to get shot 8 times. You know, if that reporting is accurate. I'm pretty sure most people, especially a young man like this, how much experience does he have in a gunfight taking bullets, right? I mean, any day. Not a lot of people walking around, oh, I got shot 8 times and I have these scars. You get shot once or twice, pretty sure you're going to stop what you're doing. I don't know if this young man, if the police are trying to claim he had this last stand and he just wouldn't go down. I find that hard to believe. If that is the case, well, body cameras would have helped show that. Or are you going to tell me that they were so afraid, the cops, that all of them just fired into him in quick succession and he got 8 bullets real fast from multiple guns? Does that make sense? No. On a practical level, it does not. So, this is just one area where it's unfortunate. The families, of course, are not going to forget. The families of the 3 men, they had a candlelight vigil yesterday. And I understand, yes, we want to see the police take action against criminals. And to be fair to the police, I'm not saying that the 3 men from the Independence Square shooting and the young man from Friday were innocent completely. But there is proportional response. I don't want to have a traffic violation and then all of a sudden end up being liable to get shot by a trigger-happy cop. And there are a lot of other things about the TTPS that, as an institution, as an organization, leaves much to be desired. And it's very, very difficult at a time when crime is so bad, a population to respond appropriately when trust in the line, the rank and file of the TTPS is probably as low as it's ever been. Maybe its lowest point. And it's not as though that there isn't historical precedent of police corruption and unlawful police violence. Moving on to the different aspect of the criminal justice system, UNC Senator Jayanti Lakshmidiyal, among others, I believe also Senior Counsel Israel Khan, urging the AG to release the report on the missing murder file. And of course, the missing murder file is most famously the file that disappeared when the state was supposed to file a defense in the Naipaul Coolman case, and that caused default judgment for the accused in their matter, and they got approximately $20 million collectively in damages. And at the time, I was willing to believe the AG story, and I'm still willing to believe it, but if this is a case where, once again, something happens, and then a government official comes up, there's a press conference, give a version of events, say they have to investigate it, say a whole load of things, cool. Of course, nothing is proven at this point, right? Nothing is proven. Even if everything that they say is the truth, nothing is proven. So we have a version of events. And then, like the file, the story disappears in the words of the AG, right? Look at Nikon, explosion, disappears. Or it comes up again, the public brings it up again because Nikon has another accident, right? Because it was only because another gentleman lost his life in an industrial accident that the previous explosion at Nikon came up into the public sphere. And then they said, no, we can't talk about it, private. Don't mind, to some extent, state funds is tied up in that project, but it's a private entity. That's convenient. How many other things disappear? How many other stories disappear? How many COVID stories disappear? Son of a sitting minister. Evidence suggests that he broke COVID-19 regulations. One of the things that the Prime Minister tried to blame Gary Griffith about. That whole situation disappeared. So now we have a very real failing. Forget the actual case itself. There's a failing within the Office of the Attorney General, under which are many subunits that handle many important things. And if we don't get a good explanation, then the whole dog and pony show that the AG gave us, that is really what disappears. And the credibility of the AG, the trust in him, because at the end of the day, look, don't give us a version of events. That is somewhat sensational. Listen, if the investigation found that it was something else, that it wasn't exactly what you said, don't be embarrassed, man up and let us know what it is. If it's not complete, man up and tell us that too. You know any things that I hate the most? I hate going to a restaurant, placing an order, and then waiting for an inexorable amount of time and not being told anything about my order. And then watching other things. You know, there are other pieces of news going on, and the government says a lot of other things. So the government is seeing about other things. The AG will be seeing about other things. So you see other people in the restaurant, you know, be seen about, be served, get their food. They might have come after me. These stories came after this one. And yet we're not even given an update. Oh, well, something with your order or whatever, or it's coming soon. Or, no, we kind of get drips and dribbles more often than not when we have to directly ask and, you know, pull teeth to get some kind of response. I wouldn't agree with the Senator Lachmidial about the allegation being absurd. I don't think it's absurd. I don't think his press conference was, you know, anything wrong was wrong with it. But if you lack the follow-up, then it looks stupid. I can't argue that point. It looks like it was cover. And then now you all of a sudden look like you were trying to cover something up. Again, transparency works for you if you let it. But this seems to be a foreign concept. ironically, for public servants who are supposed to be transparent, who harp about transparency and accountability whenever they could get a good photo up about it, but rarely practice it. Next story. This one is an interesting story, and I think one that deserves consideration now by the authorities. In this case, I'm not entirely sure if, I assume it might be the central bank itself that might have to reconsider. That doesn't necessarily mean that they have to overturn anything or change anything, but reconsider their policies. And that is because a central bank chauffeur, I'm not entirely sure what that means. Maybe he's a driver for a senior official. He is a candidate in the local government elections for the UNC. And the central bank, now, it's supposed to be an independent institution. So they have a stipulation in their employee code of conduct. It is apparently a common term or condition of working in the central bank. That is to say, it seems as though it is everybody working there. They have to, or they are prevented from running for political office in order to maintain the central bank's objectivity, impartiality, you know, so it doesn't seem as though this independent institution, which does a great deal with regards to managing our country's economy, has any sort of political bias. And there's two issues with it, I believe. The first one is central bank employees are not prevented from, well, they say campaigning and politicking, which is very subjective. What does that mean? You know, can you endorse candidates? Can you publicly state that you gave money to candidates? Can you have photos with candidates and you know, do campaign work for candidates? The other sticking point, because again, if you could do that, then you could essentially publicly display political affiliation, even though you're not running for office. The other sticking point is he's a central bank chauffeur. He's not a manager, he's not an executive, he's not a director, he's not even a supervisor. He's not even a supervisor of a non-central or non-core role or unit. He's a driver. So to what extent is his political affiliation going to change or change perceptions on the central bank? And I think that's fair. So now the question is, does the gentleman have the right to put himself up for office because he wants to represent? Now, the flip side to that is, hey, if you have a full-time job and not a job where you could set your own schedule, then how are you going to do that and be a representative? But is that necessarily fair to question him on that? Right? If people are, you know, I mean, it's public what his job is. If he's saying, well, I'll work from 4 till 8 or whatever, and people are willing to accept that, then more power to them. Go for it if they think he's the best candidate. So this is interesting to see how the central bank responds, because again, there are questions about the independence of our institutions, usually with regards to government interference. This is the first time now that someone is looking to participate with the opposition party. The flip side is similar to what I said about conflict of interest a couple of weeks ago. Do we just draw a hard line and say, no, just can't happen? We don't want any risk, zero risk at all, no matter how small, no matter how insignificant it seems. So like I said, I think that's something that the central bank potentially needs to consider. And if they say, nope, I'm not too sure if the industrial courts have a place to say that's wrong. Maybe they do. Maybe they do. But the flip side is, this was a condition that he signed up for. This is not just some, from what I understand, some policy that's not written down. I believe this is a term or condition in his contract of employment. So to some extent, you could ask for it to be changed, you could fight for it to be changed, but to force the issue like this, let's see what the judges have to say. Last topic, quick, run out of time. But just want to get this in quick. It seems as though the Mexican ambassador, he was in an accident, and the other party allegedly assaulted him, or at least damaged the ambassador's car. It's not entirely clear to me who is at fault in the accident. I believe it was the ambassador was driving, and the other car was pulling out from somewhere, pulling out of a parking spot, collided with the diplomat's vehicle. And then the driver of that car, he came out of his vehicle. It was a road rage situation, basically, and he pulled out something from his car and hit the ambassador's car. There's further allegations. The main point of the story is the other driver, Richard Henry, he apologized in the report. He said to the reporters that he wanted to apologize to the ambassador and wanted the ambassador to know. And the question that I have is he apologizing because he realizes that he was in the wrong, or is he apologizing because, well, he found out it was the Mexican ambassador, and then that gave him enough pause to realize he was in the wrong? It's an interesting thing about society, right? So you hear somebody as this important figure, and then it gives you pause. Sometimes. But more importantly, he was afraid of the driver, the other driver, the Mexican ambassador. Looked as though there was going to be an accident, and then the Mexican ambassador wants to drive off. And I want to caution people, because I witnessed an incident just like this, where one party was acting suspiciously and wanted to just, rush off. And the other party, not content with the information given to him, interdicted in the escape. And I was advised, because I called the police on the spot, I was advised to say, look, all you need is the license plate number of the other vehicle, and if they beat street, that's fine. Because at the end of the day, the ownership would be on record, and then an investigation could track that down. In this climate of violence, escalation is a concern for the TTPS. And thankfully, in this case, Richard Henry did not take it too far in the heat of the moment. When he misunderstood the situation, he didn't know who he was dealing with. He thought it was just some random foreign Spanish-speaking man who wanted to drive off and escape culpability. I don't know who's liable in the accident. But I just want to advise people, all you need is a license plate, and go and make your police report, and then if you have whatever insurance you have, because you need to have insurance, you go and report it. And you can let them handle it. No need to kind of take matters into your own hands. I get it. An accident could be very inconvenient and could be quite debilitating to your finances in this current economic climate. But given the crime situation, it's best if you try to keep things from escalating, because you never know who you're dealing with. It could be the Mexican ambassador one day. It could be someone more willing to use violence and more capable of violence and more equipped with a firearm or a knife in his car to do violence than you. So let's take a break. When we come back, going to continue looking at the factors now. Well, we're going to look at a parallel situation. You know, we like to do that here in Talking Point sometimes, with regards to factors that cause crime. Stay tuned. We'll be right back after this.
FanZone, your reliable, authentic supplier, has just gotten better. You can now visit our website www.fanzonett.com for your authentic wear and collectibles. The only place where you can use both your Visa debit and credit cards. Visit our website fanzonett.com to make your purchase today.
The best for your baby is at thebesttoys.com. From the best strollers, car seats, baby carriers, high chairs, booster seats, rockers, jumpers and bouncers, walkers, baby blankets, feeding accessories, bathtubs. Visit us in-store at Forces Flagship McLean. Shop online now at thebesttoys.com. Order via call or WhatsApp at 332-BABY. And remember, we have the best toys at the best prices.
The issue, the continued rise in the price of flour and its impact on the cost of living in Trinidad and Tobago. How should we go about it? I want to ask you, what has been revealed to you about the state of vulnerability in the country because of this exercise and because of what we're going through? Is the government losing the war on the vaccine front?
The discussion should revolve around the common good for the greatest number of people in Trinidad and Tobago.
How do we inculcate a sense of respect and regard for people who may not be of your own political ilk or persuasion?
The communities are now being used by political opportunists. So
when the tables are turned, it's the same way. Okay, this has been 10 questions. I'm Andy Johnson, and we'll see you next time.
Within the hour, we're expecting a crisis security meeting chaired by French President Emmanuel Macron. This is, of course, a new test for Macron.
It is, and you could also forgive perhaps a lot of French watching this who will watch it for rolling their eyes a little bit, not at just Macron. You can't just single him out. But, you know, we've had a succession of French presidents going back literally to Valéry Giscard d'Estaing in the 70s and even before that, with each of them always announcing what are sort of characterized as groundbreaking plans to revamp the impoverished, hard-pressed suburbs, which pack in a disproportionate share of first and second generation French immigrants, and where they experience and are up against perpetually, habitually, a lack of jobs, a lack of educational prospects and opportunities. And it comes back to bite them time and again. Now, in Macron's case, he has called, obviously, for cooler heads to prevail. He has called what happened basically inexcusable. But at the same time, he has also said that the violence that it has spawned and the unrest across France targeting institutions is unjustifiable. So it's a very delicate, a fine balance that Macron has been trying to strike here, because he doesn't want to escalate things further. But, Emmanuel Macron has been up against it right throughout his presidency. You could say he hasn't been cut any slack here. He had the yellow vest movement. He had the pandemic. He had recently the massive pension reform protests sweeping across France. Barely a breather, and now this. And so, he has to do something immediately to try to at least make it look like that he is someone who has an action plan. But let's not forget that in his first year in office, he came into office announcing groundbreaking radical change for the suburbs. And just to put that in a context, about 6 million French live in about 1,500 neighborhoods in France, which are they're categorized as what's called urban policy priority districts. And what does that mean? That means that when the government rolls out these refurbishing the suburbs, revamping the downtrodden, these neighborhoods programs, these are the priority districts that are going to get the money and get the funds. France hasn't been building these high-rise so-called HLM buildings in years, where a lot of these immigrants have lived, where the living conditions have been deplorable. Often there's been, open drug trading in the stairwells, and they've, it's been often dangerous, squalid conditions. Those buildings no longer went up. Many of them have been razed, and you've had these sort of more bar-type, long buildings built, which are aesthetically more pleasing, supposed to be more comfortable and perhaps with a bit more safety features. But still, the reality of the suburbs for the vast majority of those living there remains bleak, because even as Macron has acknowledged, many of the people who live there, and take Clichy-sous-Bois, which is one of the suburbs which over the night was affected by a lot of this unrest, was suffered a lot of this violence. 37 to 40% of the population there are immigrant or second, first generation immigrants, and Macron described them as being under house arrest. What does he mean? They're not literally under a house arrest. They can leave their homes, but they may as well be under house arrest, because they're not going to Paris. They are basically trapped with little opportunities in these suburbs, and a lot of them are young kids, adolescents, who also feel viscerally that lack of opportunity, the lack of prospects, who get sucked into having to perhaps do things that they would rather not do. A lot of those who have been involved by the police reports in the rioting have been 14 to 18-year-olds. And as we heard Mark saying before, a lot of them are exploiting, yes, taking advantage of an opportunity to basically, get something out of this if they can. And, there are some people who would say, well, you can't blame them given what they're living through, given the conditions they're living through. But Macron, like I said, is really up against it. He is the latest in a long succession of French presidents who, they're not ill-intentioned, but they haven't been able to somehow address the most deep-seated issues in these suburbs, which we were saying, the lack of jobs, the lack of education prospects, the deep poverty, the impoverishment, the high unemployment. How do you dig yourself out of that? And those are the issues that they say need even greater commitment in resources and an even greater awareness and opening and open debate in society.
Now, does some of that sound familiar? Because to me, a lot of it does. On this show, for the better part of the last 2 years, one of the ongoing things that we've spoken about with regards to crime is the lack of opportunity. One of the things that Karen has alluded to, because it's difficult to get statistics so that we could be certain, so that we could have hard figures on these things. But given what we have, Karen has alluded to the fact that the unemployment numbers might not be as great as we think they are. They might not be as low as we think they are. And similar to France, one of the situations in France is the fact that those areas where the young man, 17-year-old, was shot and killed, and other similar suburbs seem to have an issue. I believe I said this last week, not with necessarily police violence, but at the very least with trusting the police. When they come into the communities, when they represent the authority of the state, when they try to deal with crime. And the young people now who in some ways potentially feel the most pressure because they're feeling it at multiple ends, right? You don't have to be a criminal to be profiled, to be stereotyped, and the lack of opportunities will affect you more than it will affect somebody older who is not coming out of school, or if you're lucky, not now finishing a degree. And for those that don't finish school and they don't even have hopes because the education system is failing them, that's a whole other topic that I like to speak about, but I'll leave that aside for now. You don't even finish school, you don't even get CXC passes, what's there left for you? So now in France, there's a situation that has bubbled to the surface, that has reached the boiling point, because it just took one incident to ignite a spark and light the powder keg. And it's a situation that is not just about crime, but rather the foundational issues that get the ball rolling that eventually lead to crime, and the fact that, as the commentator there on our affiliate France 24 said, successive presidents have not been able to solve. And I would argue that we have the same situation. Don't be fooled by the fact that last year was the most murders that we've had. That is of secondary importance when you consider the fact that we've hit 500 before. And we've been above one murder a day for quite some time. It's a trend of growth. And it's not all of a sudden now alarm bells supposed to ring and the issue now is a problem. The issue was a problem then, during the time of the partnership, during the time of the last Patrick Manning administration, even during the time of the last Basil Pandey UNC administration, where he put a lot of effort into buying more police vehicles, and you could say, did that do anything? Maybe it did, maybe it didn't. There were other initiatives as well throughout all of the years because crime was seen as a problem. But unfortunately, the majority of the conversation on crime has been about, well, we need more police, we need more police, we need more police. We need more police to do this, we need more police action, we need more arrests, we need more whatever, prosecutions, whatever. But the root cause now, and now we're seeing an example in a foreign jurisdiction with a richer economy, with a more developed economy and system of laws, with far more resources to bring to bear. And this is around their capital. This is not just some far corner of the country in the southwest or something. And they're struggling with it. And they're seeing now what happened, because we don't necessarily have the riots and the protests. And I'm not saying that we should go that far. But apathy of our population aside, what we do have that's similar, that's parallel, is the fact that we have a long-term issue with systems in society not being efficient enough, effective enough, not providing enough opportunity for our own citizens to move forward. And that's with GEAT. And that's with what should be secondary education for all, but in practice, we're nowhere near that. When people want to dispute the literacy rate, Dr. Vanas James is of the opinion that the literacy rate, I believe, is either 60% or 40% in Tobago. That's not the 97, 98% the nation is supposed to have. And I'm sure there are those who make similar arguments in Trinidad, where people aren't literate, they can't read, they can't write. And too much money is being spent on these short-term fixes, grants, handouts, transfers and subsidies. Yes, subsidize this, subsidize that. And the private sector has shown that it's not going to solve the problem for the government. I mean, new crimes that I technically have not heard of prop up every day for the police to have to warn us about. The latest one, I heard about this before I saw the report, because I heard about a victim of this crime. You go to the bank, you withdraw cash, you get change for your float, you get change for you get cash for your payroll if for whatever reason you want to pay cash. You leave a financial institution with cash that you need for your business. Maybe it's a cash-heavy business. And then they will follow your patterns and they will figure out when they could rob your cash. Because how many business owners, a lot of our businesses are small businesses, right? Small, maybe medium, a lot of micro, so it's going to be the owner or the manager who's going to be alone, deal with the cash, very vulnerable. And criminals are now figuring out, hey, I don't need to break into a safe, I don't need to go past security cameras and maybe a guard and burglar proofing and all of that jazz. I don't have to try to pick a lock in the middle of the night when the thing is closed. I just go after the cash in the middle of the day. And the sad part, as my co-host says, you know, the ingenuity of criminals. If only we would provide opportunities for the smart men to make a legitimate living. So, just something I want to point out. You know, something to learn from and to be warned by. But the SP will be joining me. Most likely he'll be in the hot seat today here on Talking Point. We'll get into a whole host of topics with regards to crime. Stay tuned, folks. This is your content capital, WESN Talking Point. We'll be right back.
People really want to know, what about me? Where do I fit? Yes. What is in the ride for me in terms of a better Trinidad and Tobago? And I'm pleased to shed some light on that.
The purpose of bail is to ensure your attendance at court. That's it. It is not punitive. It is not rehabilitative.
We, the police officers, we are professional, and we are here for whenever the survivor is ready to come forward.
We have the right to private and family life, the right to religious freedoms and beliefs and thoughts and expression. But these rights are not absolute. Certain rights can be limited.
The law is to govern the whole. It's for all of us in public.
Join me, Sule A. Joseph, as I delve into the day-to-day psychological issues plaguing our society. We will discuss behaviors that encompass the biological influences, social pressures, and environmental factors that affect how you think, act, and feel. Psyched. Thursdays at 11:30 a.m. only on WESN, Content Capital.
Mental health can explain the behavior of bullies, but also the impact of those who are bullied.
And you have those individuals who may have, some children have what you call conduct disorders. And a conduct disorder, some of them are like to light fires, kill pets, and all these things. Now, those children could go on into adulthood and be somebody with a personality disorder, is what we call a psychopath or antisocial personality disorder.
Do they pick on or target a specific personality, their victim, or is it across the board?
What's Up Doc, every Tuesday and Thursday on WESN, Content Capital.
Take some time for yourself or spend some time with the family at Sandy Point Village Hotel. Enjoy our various studio and suite apartments, self-contained with their own kitchenettes and Wi-Fi. We also have our famous 100-foot swimming pool and our beachfront restaurant, The Steak and Lobster Grill. And our location in Crown Point puts us near the center of activity from the nylon pool to the local nightlife. Call us and make your reservations at 639-8533, 389-2378 or email us at sandypointvillagehotel@gmail.com.
Is it politics? What is it? Is it that nobody cares about sports?
The kind of support that sport used to get in the past is no longer here.
The thing is, taking a knee doesn't mean that that's the only thing you're doing on.
Right.
Taking a knee along with other stuff.
Samantha, what are you looking forward to when you return home to Trinidad and Tobago after winning the title?
Thank you very much for speaking it into existence.
Is there no pressure on Nicholas Ball?
It makes me more motivated to work hard and to go out there and rep the red, white and black.
Why are we sending a team to the Winter Olympics?
There are a number of Trinbagonians who are in the diaspora and have grown up in winter sport. It's an opportunity that the Trinidad and Tobago Olympic Committee will not close the door on.
I also believe in the players that we have. Once you can motivate the players, you can get the best out of them.
As Kevin Hart would say, damn! Why we have so much minors out on the streets? There's an after-school program happening there.
Side women, don't give up. You know, you can become queen one day.
Those companies who are currently looking for their money that they deposited in the Silicon Valley Bank, it's not there. ChatGPT is basically the start of Terminator. Our relationship with the colonial powers is like a relationship with a little bit of abuse that people like to stay in. And we remember how that was. Put in $100 and later tonight, you'll get back $3,000. I promise you. I promise you not. Did you rent an accent while you were across there?
When you're in the proximity of Donald Trump, somehow you adopt his aura.
First of all, I thought the $200 would be more than enough. It's $200.
I am a goat farmer. I had 3 goats. Yeah, 3 goats and 1 cow. You know the name?
No, I don't.
Right, Messi, LeBron, and Cristiano Ronaldo. And the cow name Haaland.
I love Trinidad and Tobago, you know.
And like I said, we have Acting SP Ashraf Ali here with us this morning to join us once again on Talking Point to speak about issues that concern the police. Just a quick question though, because I just briefly mentioned the situation where criminals are looking to rob people who now leave banks, business owners or people with, doing business transactions with large amounts of cash, and they get robbed as they're leaving while they have the cash on them. Is it seen as a growing crime, or is it that crime has always been in existence to some degree or another? Because I do know that they might ambush them outside of the business. You know, on a day, if it's a high cash business and they suspect that they have a lot of cash revenue on them before it makes it to the bank. But now they're targeting them, you know, when they're doing bank transactions.
All right, so morning to you and morning to the viewers and listeners out there. It is, or it has been an existing crime, right, where we would have situations like this taking place. But over the years, we have seen in the past, it has been a little more prominent. And this brings to us where we were discussing over the last 2 weeks, aiding and abetting, right, and parties to crimes. So we can't look at only the person who robbed the individual who actually committed the offense, but there's investigation that will surround from the time that you went into the banking institution, who you engaged with, because there may be a link between information sharing among parties to that crime. Because it's strange when sometimes you hear the facts that a person's come to the station and report that they just went in a bank, they came out with large sums of money, and they were intercepted or they were stopped at a particular location and they were robbed of a certain amount of money. And when you hear that they went to the bank, how does that happen? They have several different ways it may happen. That persons may have been outside the bank, canvassing the bank and observing individuals. We also suspect that at some point in time, information may have been shared within the bank by persons who may be in the bank. It could be banking personnel. We don't know, right? But there are circumstances where all these persons who are involved in this incident considered to be parties to the crime.
It could also potentially be an employee of the business. You know, they make note, well, he went to the bank and he brought us a cash.
So these are all parties to the crime. And we just keep on reinforcing over the last couple of weeks that not the person who committed the principal offense, which is the robbery, is culpable also. Now, I just want to bring this to your attention. Under the laws of Trinidad and Tobago, we have Chapter 1002, with the Accessors and Abettors Act. And I want to read this for you all. How important this is. Any person who aids, abets, counsels, or procures the commission of any indictable offense may be indicted, tried, and punished as a principal offender. So both of us committed an offense, right? You may be the one who do. I carried you to do the robbery. I assisted you in doing the robbery. Both of us could get charged as a principal offender.
I think the key is we will both have the same crime on record if found guilty.
Yes. Now, Part 3 of this also states, any person who aids, abets, counsels, and procures the commission of any offense punishable on summary conviction. Remember, we talk about indictable also. So that's a murder, that is 5 years and above. Right? Where the penalty is 5 years and above, on summary is 5 years and less. Right? So in summary offenses, the principal offender and maybe proceed against either the principal offender or before, and this is key. Let me read this over. Any person who aids, abets, counsels, or procures the commission of any offense punishable on summary conviction is liable to the same punishment as a principal offender, as we said earlier. This is another part. And may be proceeded against either with the principal offender or before or after his conviction. So the principal offender could be convicted today. Right. Investigations could continue, and the aider or abetter can be convicted after. So notwithstanding that you have been convicted for that, investigation could continue and you can be convicted after the fact. That is in the context of this robbery of the banking institution. Right. We may arrest the perpetrators who committed the robbery, the initial robbery.
But the accomplices.
But the accomplices and the abettors and the access, the investigation can lead to those individuals being arrested after the fact.
Now, here's another question. Intent, right? Does that factor in with aiding and abetting? Because let's stay on this scenario. My boss, he has a cash-rich business. He goes to the bank, right? He's going to the bank today, and I unintentionally reveal that to a member of the public because I'm talking and it's within earshot of somebody. And that ends up going into the ears of the criminals.
You see, when you look at how the law is structured, these are all defenses that will be put forth in a trial.
Okay.
The police cannot take that type of information and make a judgment that your intention, because we would not be able to say what was your intention. Mm-hmm. You had to prove your intention was.
Mm-hmm.
non-criminal as this case would be.
And like I think a clearer example would be, I reveal the information to somebody unknowingly, but it looks as though, it might be private conversation. It looks as though that I was, feeding information.
Exactly. So there are a lot of things that has to be dealt with from an investigative perspective, as well as when somebody has been charged, you have the matter before the court, and you have arguments for the prosecution and defense that will have to prove in court. We're not going beyond the court perspective, because that's a different conversation.
Right.
We just want to inform the public and keep informing the public that your actions, and it's all about your actions. And if you will understand what aided means simply to help in a practical way or offer support and assistance. Simple as that. You may not believe that you're aiding, but the law is simple when it comes to that. That is why they give a very simple definition. You aided. You lend someone your vehicle. You didn't know that they're going to put on a robbery with the vehicle, but you aided. So then you can be held accountable because you know, or you had some knowledge that this individual has a reputation or has been involved in certain type of things. But you still lend them your vehicle. The possibility exists that they may be going to put on they may commit a criminal offense with your vehicle. That's a possibility.
Or in the case of where you have family members who, and I'm not looking to point to any specific example, but they might be willfully, blind to what's going on with their at-risk family member.
Exactly.
Oh, so, you need the car? Okay, well, we could lend you the car. And then all of a sudden, the car comes back, a little more worn than you expected because it was used in something.
And then we have the word abetted. Encourage or assist in the commission of the offense. We see people make certain utterances that you say that they're not encouraging. So a fight they see a school fight taking place, or in a party, the most recent one where the persons were assaulting the individual on the ground, right? And parties to that crime were encouraging each other to hit the man or hit the person, but you cuff the man, he's this and this, he's at this, and you're encouraging persons to continue the offense. That is simply abetting.
Well, here's another issue, because this came up. I was watching something online about a foreign case where a news media outlet now was arguing. They were basically debating who encouraged one of the more recent shootings that happened in America because it was politically motivated. And while we don't necessarily have quite the same environment here, at the end of the day, I'm curious, do we have laws on the books to deal with a situation where maybe a media, member of the media might give inflammatory commentary, or a politician might give inflammatory political statements about the opposing side that he's facing against, that could potentially cause somebody to get the wrong idea, and take it too far and commit a crime. Well, could a politician or a member of the media be held under this law or some other law?
Well, the thing about it is that anyone can.
Well, right. Okay.
Anyone can. It just means that persons in the political arena as well as a media will be held with a little more standard, because their influence will be a little greater than some of the average individual. So we look at it from a different. You look at it from the fact that your position and your status in society and how we could influence. And when you look at procured, persuade or cause someone to commit an offense, your language. So we talk about inciting, right? So you might want to incite. Right, so it's certain type of language you might use, and the tone of your communication towards someone. All that has to be considered, and we believe that what we see on social media has no significance, because I didn't tell the person to go and commit the offense. But when you look at the laws, even the posting of certain things on social media by saying they should have done this, or if I was this person, why didn't do this? And
right.
I want you to do so and so, and this man should have been dealt with this way, and all I should have dealt with the police this way, those type of things. Upon investigation, taking in consideration everything around it, and if an investigation, you can end up going down the road.
Well, there's two aspects there. One which you directly pointed out, because of course you'll see it on social media a lot, where somewhat hidden in the anonymity of however many comments they have, right? So it might be dozens or hundreds or thousands of comments. You might get people that might say that, if I was there, I would do this. I want to let them do this to me, you know, and say very confrontational statements and whatever, for whatever situation. Now, it could be a lot of people making similar statements like that. Is it that you all might try to find the first person that maybe kind of kick-started that sentiment, or would you actually look to potentially like look into everybody, not necessarily arrest everybody that makes these statements, but look into everybody?
Well, that's the extent of the investigation. But we in Trinidad, of the opinion that because I wasn't there, and I didn't do this, and I wasn't directly involved, I didn't do anything wrong. So we tend to go for the person who is the principal, right? In some circumstances, you go to the abettor and the aid and abettor. We don't going after the counselor or the procurer. It's a little more in-depth investigation. That's more, you might end up going on the line of conspiracy and further investigations to go along that line. But nevertheless, persons need to understand that in our society at this point in time, posting on social media, your language is important. Because your language can incite, or your language can cause someone to continue or cause someone to commit an offense.
And I mean, that was debated in America in one of their mass shooting situations. So it's not, the ASP is not just, you know, blowing smoke. With that, we have to take a break for news on the hour. When we return, the SP with me will be taking phone calls. Well, we have no news, but we'll take a break, and the SP will take your questions. He's on the hot seat once again. I'm sure there's a lot you all might want to ask him. So stay tuned for that here on Talking Point on WESN, your content capital.
Mental health can explain the behavior of bullies, but also the impact of those who are bullied.
And you have those individuals who may have, some children have what you call conduct disorders. And a conduct disorder, some of them are like to light fires, kill pets, and all these things. Now, those children could go on into adulthood and be somebody with a personality disorder, as what we call a psychopath or antisocial personality disorder.
Do they pick on or target a specific personality, their victim, or is it across the board?
What's up, Doc? Every Tuesday and Thursday on WESN, Content Capital.
The issue, the continued rise in the price of flour and its impact on the cost of living in Trinidad and Tobago. How should we go about it? I want to ask you, what has been revealed to you about the state of vulnerability in the country because of this exercise and because of what we're going through? Is the government losing the war on the vaccine front?
The discussion should revolve around the common good for the greatest number of people in Trinidad and Tobago.
How do we inculcate a sense of respect and regard for people who may not be of your own political ilk or persuasion?
The communities are now being used by political opportunists. So
when the tables are turned, it's the same way. Okay, this has been 10 questions. I'm Andy Johnson, and we'll see you next time.
Take some time for yourself or spend some time with the family at Sandy Point Village Hotel. Enjoy our various studio and suite apartments, self-contained with their own kitchenettes and Wi-Fi. We also have our famous 100-foot swimming pool and our beachfront restaurant, the Steak and Lobster Grill. And our location in Crown Point puts us near the center of activity from the nylon pool to the local nightlife. Call us and make your reservations at 639-8533, 389-2378, or email us at sandypointvillagehotel@gmail.com.
Coming up on Nicole Larson Live. It was in 2018 where something happened.
I got a call. It was the third day. He said, let me tell you what you're going to hear tomorrow. Tomorrow you're going to hear that they have found him. He has floated to the top. He would be decomposed. He would be smelling awful. And I'm listening to him on the phone because he is just giving me the cold, hard facts.
Even though it takes time, time alone will not heal. You cannot heal what you do not acknowledge.
The unconscious socializing is what we need to check, because I was just doing it to avoid being home. I don't want to be in the bedroom because it's not the same anymore.
You can be happy, hurting, and healing all at the same time.
I choose to have gratitude. My soul is safe with Christ. I choose to be, yeah, the grateful one.
An encore of Nicole Larson Live, living in victory every day. Airing on WESN, the content capital, on Sunday, July 2nd at 8 p.m. Don't you miss it.
Welcome back to Talking About, ladies and gentlemen. So, of course, it's Monday. We open the phone lines to hear from you, the viewer. Quite a lot of controversial things have been in the press over the weekend. So if you want to ask the acting SP on that, you can ask, and he will try his best to answer you as a representative. He's not the commissioner, and he's not an elected official. Just remember that. But he will try his best to answer you. Just remember, we only have one phone line, which is there on your screen, 6284578. And we might need to cut the call if it goes on too long. It is technically at our discretion, folks. I understand if you might get frustrated. But we might have to cut the call if it goes on too long so that it's clear for other calls to come in. Our first caller from Pretty Valley this morning. Good morning, caller.
Morning, Sean.
Morning.
Sean, the controversy about the central bank worker. It have a case where that is not the first case, you know. It have Dwayne O'Connor, the Calypsonian, a police officer, who went up for office too and was blocked by Gary Griffith. That case is still going on in court. Here the problem with that, Sean. If you sign up and the job is a policy, most government jobs have that policy, right? Now, some people are saying he's just a chauffeur. When you are a chauffeur, you know how much high sensitive information you could get by driving the top person in the company when they're on the phone probably speaking. You know, they're on the phone speaking and you're a chauffeur. You could hear a lot of top confidential stuff. And you now could go back and leak it to who you want to leak it to. When you put up yourself and you say you put up yourself as a UNC or PNM, you cannot do these jobs because of conflict or interest. And if the job had that policy and you took the job, you sign up for it on the contract, why now come in and say you want to do the job? Let me give you an example. If you're a home owner, and you come to me to rent my home, and I say no pets, no dogs allowed in my home, and you sign the contract, after a while now you started bringing dogs and pets, and I come and tell you about it, you know you want to cry me to court. But most time you wouldn't win those cases in court. So have a nice day, Sean. That's my contribution.
To be fair, I'm not too sure if the court will see it quite the same. That's point number one. Point number two, I don't know if I would put central bank and police in the same breath. I don't know why, but my instinct is a bit more concerned about central bank conflict of interest over police, and maybe my priorities are incorrect with regards to that. But acting ASP, so that is true. The police are supposed to be independent?
Yes. So part of our regulations, part of the regulation is that we must be objective and apolitical. We must not ascribe to any political parties while a member of, you're free to vote like everybody else, but openly states that you're going to support a particular party. And in that specific case, the matter is before the court, but generally, you would not get a police officer other than working at will have to performing official duties at a political rally or political meeting that is part of our official function. We have to attend because of
for security.
But we cannot go. We are not supposed to declare that we are in full support of an individual particular party and put ourselves up. We have to get permission, and we have to get permission from the Commissioner of Police indicating our intentions.
Okay.
Right, and if that is the case, it may require that our policies that we may have to resign because we have just declared our position.
Okay. We have a caller from Faisal. Good morning, caller.
Good morning, Sean. Good morning, officer. Good morning, Trinidad and Tobago.
Morning.
On the run. First thing, I've been reading the newspaper over the weekend. I've seen a check being displayed to John Public, written to a certain individual who is connected, who has political affiliation with the PNM. With the same veracity and urgency that they went to investigate Mr. Farley, based on a conversational, on a tape, I hope that they would carry out some investigation with respect to the allegations and this check. Secondly, there's a radio talk show, Sean, I would have mentioned that before, and I heard the goodly officer saying about incitement, where this talk show hosts were inciting people to break down Indian people's door and invade their homes. And nothing came out of that. So I wonder if it is very, segregational in terms of prosecuting people like these. The other one, I want to know with respect to news presenters, I understand Mr. Fazil Mohammed would have left a certain TV station, and quite recently it is alleged that the announcer would have felt a certain way and expressed her emotion with respect to it, and was dismissed from TV6 as well. Is it, I wonder if it's ethnic cleansing or what it is, my brother?
Well, with regards to your last statement, I can't really comment about it. It would be irresponsible for me to do so. So I literally don't have enough information to comment about it. It could be something that might be tangential to racially motivated. So I'll just, advise you on that. It's not always going to be racism, even if it has the appearance of it. But that's all I can say about it, because I just don't know. There was, with regards to the second point that the caller made, is it that, it's not just automatic, because there's crime happening, and some people in public spheres might be making statements, but it's not automatic that it's connected, is that correct?
Exactly. So it all depends on the context and the content. I'm not too sure how the comment was made, in what context the comment was made from the media personality, the radio talk show host, because there are certain type of talk shows that has a particular tone, right? I mean, that's the freedom of the press in terms of how they choose to carry out their and they know their borders and their boundaries, where they can cross and where they can't cross. Now, it all depends on the context, and I'm saying that because you may say something that offends one side, and we look at it because we always have an issue when you say something controversial.
Yeah.
And there are controversial topics that people don't want to hear. So I can't comment directly on the context or the conversation per se, but generally your behavior on these platforms, social media, political platform, anybody who has a particular status quo in society, and the media is held at a very high standard because your influence, right? And when I use media, you know what I'm talking about. Media, all its sorts, at a particular influence. Even on this talk show, you have to be very apolitical in the way that you bring across certain things. Your views, right? Your views, right? And that's how you can't incite anybody to do anything on your show.
Right. Well, acting LSP, depending on who you ask, if you ask a PNM supporter, I am biased for the UNC. If you ask a UNC supporter, I am biased for the PNM.
And that's good.
Well, it's just that some people might take what you just said and run with it. No, he's biased.
But see, what comes out good from that is that you have a wide cross-section of listeners.
True.
So I look at the positive from that.
True. We have a caller. Where we have a caller from, Director? San Fernando. Sorry about that. Good morning, caller.
Good morning, Sean.
Morning.
Good morning, sir.
You know, if it is that the police service were to look at that caller talk about incitement and look at radio talk shows, that there would be a lot less radio talk shows, because there are a lot of them that pro-yellow and pro-red that, in my opinion, need to be shut down, because both of them spew a lot of inciting things. So I would hope that caller should, the police service should look at those a little more carefully, and we'll have a lot less of those people on the radio. Secondly, Sean, you showed that France 24 clip about the youth.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think the only parallels they have with Trinidad and Tobago is probably the age groups. Because let me tell you this, there are two different things. In Trinidad right now, Sean, that hopelessness that you talk about with that age group, Sean, there are so many. Because we discussed this previously, I went to look for some information. I was amazed of the amount, I knew they had, but the amount of programs that they have available from state agencies for people that age group, up from 18 to 35 and higher. So I went further and I spoke to some of these people in some of these agencies that I sought out, who were coordinators and that type of thing in those agencies. And the biggest problem that they have in Sean is to recruit people for these programs.
As in
very interesting.
Participants, not employees, not workers, but people to actually participate.
There are problems to recruit people for these programs, and one of the things is when you look at the requirements, Sean, some of them are so basic. All you need: ID card, one passport photo, that is it, and your birth certificate. And they are not getting people in the program, so there's something amiss.
Mm-hmm.
That at a particular age group, these people don't want to. I don't know if they don't have the drive, and I keep saying one of the things we need to look at is repealing that marijuana bill that have people, have these youths on the street out there, have access to marijuana easily. Thank you.
Thank you, caller. Interesting commentary, all of it. It's asking us to take a hard look at ourselves on some important topics. With regards to radio and incitement, the flip side is, you might be potentially censoring or taking censorship potentially too far. Potentially. So that's a slippery slope, because the flip side, you're not entirely wrong if your concern is the incitement of violence, right? So that's a hard question now that we as a society need to potentially ask ourselves. What is our priority and how far we're willing to go? And it's not so much how far we're willing to go if we're perfectly accurate. It's how far we're willing to go with the caveat that we're going to get mistakes in the system. And that's the issue, right? Where the censorship might be an unfortunate mistake in judgment or as a case-by-case basis. We have to somewhat account for that. or be willing to accept that depending on how far we want to go. And again, it will censor speech. And with regards to the young people, that's a good point. So then now, you're right, what is amiss? Is it laziness? Is it weed? What is it? And that might also require a hard look at ourselves to answer that question. We have a caller from Faizabad. I don't know. Good morning, caller.
Yeah, good morning, Sean. Me again.
Yes.
With respect to the person, it was very instructive in their comments. They were actually instructing people to invade people's homes, you know.
Like he literally said that.
Yeah, and the other thing I want to talk about is that I didn't hear the officer comment on the check issue.
Yeah. I have not had a chance to get to that yet, caller.
I would really love to hear his opinion, but that I can send you, and I did send Keaton the voice note together with the photograph via WhatsApp, because you remember this is a thing I've been hammering about for a little while
now. Okay. I'm not entirely sure what is he. Well, I haven't been tracking this story that well, but so the caller is now saying that he heard a radio personality. I believe it's a radio personality say directly, invade their homes. Is that something to look at?
Invade their homes.
Well, East Indian homes.
I can't say so.
Right, it's still too vague.
I cannot assume that.
Right.
So you see, I understand what the caller is saying. There is a level of incitement in that language. So under what we're talking about here, counsel somebody, we talk about formally advise in relation to commit an offense. That is where it falls into the category of inciting and advising somebody to commit an offense. But you have to be able to be clear as to the context, and you have to be clear that you are telling somebody to commit a particular offense targeting that particular individual. There's a level of investigation has to be done with incitement and inciting and all those type of things. So I'm not saying that it may not have been an offense.
Right.
But I cannot comment and say that specific instance, right, it's not an offense. So you have to look at everything in that context.
Right. You can't say
I can't give
how
a judgment.
easy it is to
easy
prove
to
or
just say okay
disprove.
because
Right.
we're gonna say that just so, because there's a lot of things that just now you mentioned about stifling the media.
Right.
Right. And putting I use it to muzzle the media, as you always say. So we have to be very cautious with respect to that. Right. We have to be very cautious.
Right. We have a caller, I believe, from, is it Davide?
Yes, morning.
Morning, caller.
Morning. Hi, guys. Morning. Wonderful program. I hope you all had a wonderful weekend. And ASP Ashraf, is nice to see you all and to see that the police PR is busy at work. But you should know my voice by now.
Sure.
I'm not afraid to say my name either. Retired PC Blackman. I'm very much concerned with the strategic approach by the executive of the police service. And when you all continue with a 2-year strategic plan, it's not in keeping with international best practices, and I still don't understand. I am not seeing from the layman's point of view any progress with respect to all the set of PR you all doing, both on electronic and print media. And you have been on several programs from time and time again. Do you all do any form of assessment with respect to see how well you all are doing? Because, people, all the callers on the station know you. They know when you're on. They know when you're on other stations. But how is the service getting value for money? Re-PR. And the message is going out there daily, and we see that crime and homicides keep going up. I'll hang up and allow you to comment, but there are persons who are willing to assist that I am sure can make a difference. Let's see it now. Let's see it. All right. Thanks and have a nice day.
Well, I understand what the former officer is indicating, and I will continue to say that I am not in a position to recommend you to lend support. Right? He needs to put his hands up, engage the commissioner and the executive as to what support he wants to present, what additional support he wants to give to the police service with all the experience that he had to bring forward. Now, just like everything else, everybody would have the opinion that the strategic plans are not working in their view, in their mind. I understand that because you may not know the full context of the strategic plan because there are several facets of the strategic plan that needs to be dealt with in different aspects of it. Media ambassadors are one, and we continue to be out there week in, week out, sharing information with the public. The strategy behind it is that we need to be the frontal, and we need to share information to the public in areas that they may not even consider as important. Because even though crime from the aspect of murders and serious offenses are the front burners, there are other things that also affect crimes, the murders and everything else, because of the fact that you have persons who believe their small role is insignificant because I didn't do anything wrong. I just lent somebody a vehicle, or I played a small role in it. I didn't kill anyone, or I didn't cause anybody to kill anyone. I only keep the gun for the person. I didn't shoot the individual. Understanding that how this whole parties to crime in this forum, how it operates, you played a role. So you have a part to play, and you have a part to answer for.
We have a caller. I haven't forgotten the question about the check scandal, or at least, and I want to weigh in on that with regards to the media ambassadors. But we have a caller from Shogunas. I think that should be the last call for the morning. Good morning, caller.
Good morning. Did you read the news on this bribe that was paid for this UNC councillor to cross the floor? The person who wrote it said that he promised to expedite payment for that government owes. Isn't that a bribe?
That's a good question. That is a good question. Assuming that version of events is true.
Well, that's the guy who wrote the check, sir.
Because I think that is a concern, not just in this case, but an ongoing concern with regards to how contracts are awarded as rewards, and then, oh, you need your money now? Well, I mean, just in Tobago, to be fair, in Tobago, that's one of the questions with one of the contractors where pressure is being put for that one contractor to get his money.
Yeah, but then why you have contractors at all if 70% of the workforce is employed by the THA? What them doing?
Well, construction. That's the one thing the THA apparently doesn't do. They outsource that.
They don't outsource that. I read about road repayment and all this sort of thing they give out contractors. Okay, boss.
I mean, like I said, it's a legitimate concern with regards to, yes,
corruption in government.
Right. On the surface, it has the veneer of not being corruption, except now how the contracts are awarded. Yeah, so you have another point? Because I agree with your point.
Okay, right. No, right.
All right, thank you, caller. Yeah, I agree with the point. And basically, to answer that, I don't know if you have a comment. I don't know.
No.
On the former UNC member who was apparently given $500,000+ to cross the floor. Is that something that the police could investigate?
It all depends, and I'm saying it may come across as being deflective, but if there's a concern in terms of the nature of it, and a report has been made, I'm not aware whether or not any formal report was made to the police relative to this particular incident. If it is, then an investigation will be conducted. It would fall under the category of our anti-corruption department or even our fraud department. It all depends on the nature of it. But it still brings that we of the opinion that little things are not important because of the big crime. But when you look at what we are talking about and we continue to reinforce parties to crime, and the reason why we continue to say parties to crime, everybody within that whole crime who had a part to play is significant. So we have the aider, we have the abettor, we have the counselor, and then we have the person who procured or persuade or cause someone to commit the offense. Someone would have asked that individual, sorry, may rephrase from using a direct example. Someone may ask someone to do something to get a particular benefit, and you may be in a position in an organization to do such. It's an offense you may be committing, but you may see it as not an offense, but under the different laws of Trinidad and Tobago, it may fall into a category of an offense, because we have white-collar crime and we have, as we say, we have white-collar crime and you have blue-collar crimes. Right? White-collar crimes are a little more intricate, because there are certain policies and procedures and things that has to be done, and a level of investigation that overlaps several different spheres. But what is key is that once an offense has been committed, there are always parties to crime. And you either an aider, a abettor, are counseled, or are procured in that category. So there are four parties within that area. And you have to understand that you, the individual, even though you play a small part, you can be, in accordance with our Aiders and Abettors Act 1002, that you can be investigated and be charged just like the principal.
Now, the irony is, I don't think the chain of events in this story has any direct connection to the PNM. I could be wrong with regards to the businessman who issued the check. If the connection could be made there, but just based on what I have read on the case, it seems that the businessman cut the check to the person, basically financing him for promises of a future campaign, when a future delivery to try to help the businessman down the line. So ironically, it might not directly involve the PNM, but again, that's just speculation based on what I've read. It could be that there's evidence that directly links or not. It should be investigated, just like the situation in Tobago should be investigated. And I'll just close this show to say this. With regards to the media ambassadors, at least of the TTPS, the one thing that we should appreciate is the fact that, look, caller from San Fernando pointed it out, programs not being utilized. I would wonder to what extent is their existence being made to the public's awareness effectively. The message that they're out there and available, is it being distributed, spread effectively enough, far-reaching enough throughout society? And the one thing about the TTPS media ambassadors is the fact that they're not just here to deal with the bacchanal. They give us information with regards to the laws of our lands that I very much appreciate, and I hope that since they're all over the media, that at least the people of Trinidad and Tobago will get some of it here and there. We'll be better informed and be better able to treat with these sorts of situations. So with that, we're over time, so I'll have to end things there. I want to thank all the callers. Thank DSP Ashraf Ali for coming to Talking Point. We hope that you all stay safe, and we will see you tomorrow morning. Goodbye.
WESN. I'm Andre L. Batiste, and you're watching WESN, the content capital.
Mental health can explain the behavior of bullies, but also the impact of those who are bullied.
And you have those individuals who may have, some children have what you call conduct disorders. And a conduct disorder, some of them are like to light fires, kill pets, and all these things. Now, those children could go on into adulthood and be somebody with a personality disorder, is what we call a psychopath or antisocial personality disorder.
Do they pick on or target a specific personality, their victim, or is it across the board?
What's Up, Doc? Every Tuesday and Thursday on WESN, Content Capital.
People really want to know, what about me? Where do I fit?
Yes.
What is in the ride for me in terms of a better Trinidad and Tobago? And I'm pleased to shed some light on that.
The purpose of bail is to ensure your attendance at court. That's it. It is not punitive, it is not rehabilitative.
We, the police officers, we are professional, and we are here for whenever the survivor is ready to come forward.
We have the right to private and family life, the right to religious freedoms and beliefs and thoughts and expression. But these rights are not absolute. Certain rights can be limited.
The law is to govern the whole, is for all of us in public.
Join me, Sule A. Joseph, as I delve into the day-to-day psychological issues plaguing our society. We will discuss behaviors that encompass the biological influences, social pressures, and environmental factors that affect how you think, act, and feel. Sight, Thursdays at 11:30 a.m., only on WESN, Content Capital.
Did you tell your hubby about it, first of all?
I did.
When you were telling him, did you think that he was going to think differently of you or less of you?
I thought exactly that.
In case you've missed it, it's an encore of Nicole Larson Live. Relive some of the riveting experiences of everyday people